Hey, today I'm going to tell you guys about my week 4 experience with my training engineer with Schneider. I'm going to tell you guys how my TE was and the experience I gained from doing this part of the training. So without further ado, let's get started. So if you got to the end of my last video, you would know how I was telling you guys my TE training would be local. Some of you might wonder, why would they give me a training engineer that does local work when I am an over-the-road driver? It's like that because Schneider doesn't have many training engineers that are over the road. So basically they give what's really available. I was fine with that considering my TE was actually located in my home area and I was able to go home after we completed tasks. I felt lucky because other people that I trained with in Coriopolis didn't get this luxury. Some had to travel pretty far from where they actually lived to get with a training engineer and actually do the whole sleeping in the bunk thing. Some of you might ask the question, well, Lanky, wouldn't you have wanted the actual over-the-road training since that's what you're going to be doing? My answer to that question is no, not really. I mean, I guess it would be better to have gotten real over-the-road experience if that's what I'll be doing, but to me, the local training was just as effective. And for people that value pay a little more than the experience, you would have made the same money regardless. So if your TE would have had you running long loads and doing unloads, chances are you would be making the same amount as someone like me who was going short distances and just dropping relays. And no, that's not all I did when I was with the TE. I did indeed do 2 air unloads in the week I trained with him, but I will touch more on that in a few. But yeah, if you would have been out doing most of the driving or work during this week, it would not have made a lick of difference on your check. Me personally, I was just ready to come home for a little bit anyway after the grueling 3 weeks in Coriopolis, Pennsylvania. It was such a grind and the hotel living can be tough as well. So to be able to come back home after all that and get the training necessary to do the job was dope. When I got that news in PA on how my training would be, it made me too happy because I really was expecting to get shipped somewhere random and share a living space in a moving box. And if you don't know, their tanker sleepers aren't big by any means, so no complaints from me at all there. Now I'm going to walk you through the lead up of me meeting my TE. So on Friday, I got emailed about my TE training and whatnot. The person that sends you that email is actually at the OC in PA. So if you have any questions that you'd rather ask in person, she is conveniently there. But anyways, I got the email giving me my next steps. They set me up with a rental to go back home the next morning on Saturday, which would be a 6-hour drive for me. They set me up with Budget as the rental provider. And there was a long line when I got to the airport to pick it up. I arrived at the airport around 10:30 a.m. and didn't depart until around 12 p.m. I heard the line was like that because a lot of people came into town to see the Steelers play the Cowboys and see Penn State versus UCLA at the time. When I finally got up there to get my rental, the guy told me all they had were minivans available, which I was totally fine with. It was a 24 Chrysler Pacifica. It drove pretty smooth and it had plenty of legroom, which is needed for someone like me who's 6'5" and who is driving for 6 hours. Some of you might wonder, why couldn't they have flown me back if I flew there? My guess is they couldn't book a flight in time, or they're just cheap. But either way, I was able to get home safely, which really all that matters. I got home around 6 p.m. and was greeted with the biggest hug from my wife. Another good reason to have local training if you're like me, so you can come home and do the wife or the girlfriend thing like Denzel says in Training Day. In the email, they wanted me to return the rental the day after on Sunday. Also, on this day was when I was expected to hear from my TE about where to meet and at what time. He called me Sunday afternoon telling me how he wanted me to meet him at the Kuala Wash in our area at 6 a.m. in the morning. Not going to lie, after getting off the phone with him, I was a little nervous. He sounded like he was strict over the phone. This goes back to before I left PA. I asked a couple of trainers if they knew anything about the TE I was getting, and they did say he has a military background and that he's a real professional. However, they did tell me how I was in great hands because he's a good TE. I forgot to mention in the email you get before you leave PA, they do give the name of the training engineer, so before you leave, you can ask some trainers about the TE you're getting. But yeah, they told me my trainer was top-notch, which was good to hear. But with them telling me how he was an older guy and how he was militant, I was expecting him to be on that tough or typical boomer stuff, especially getting off the phone with him. So Monday comes and we meet at the Kuala Wash in the morning. For those who don't know, the Kuala Wash are stations where tankers go to get trailers, hoses, and fittings washed. It can even be used as a place where you can leave your truck, rest, and take your resets. Before I meet him, he calls and tells me where I should be parked because the Kuala workers like to bitch about that of thing. So I move my car, then a couple minutes later I see him pulling up in his personal vehicle. I guess he already knew it was me when he saw me in the lot and immediately got out his car, gave me a big morning greeting, followed with a handshake. One thing he noticed about me though when he seen me was that I had a little, and do mean a little, facial hair. Think I mentioned this before, but for bulk tankers, they want you to be clean shaven at all times for tight seals for your respirators. Mustaches are allowed, which I have, but you can't have any type of beards or goatees, which I don't. I have little strands that barely grow on my chin that I've been growing since '96 and I'm 27. I passed the respirator fit test no problem with how it was, so I wasn't tripping on what he was saying with that. So after we meet, we head to the truck too. First thing he wanted me to do was store my PPE in his sleeper and pre-trip his truck. After that, he wanted me to write down all the numbers on all the seals to match the numbers on the BOL, basically teaching me how to verify paperwork work. From there, he showed me the assignment on his workflow, which was an Ecolab type load where you gotta wear the green suit and all that. It was an air unload, so I was prepared. He showed me the proper steps to take when it comes to trip planning on the tablet. Actually doing it with a live load made little more sense than when we were training in Pennsylvania. I had drove there, which was an hour away from where we were. When we got there, we had to scale and check in. Since it was my first time there at the plant, I had to watch a video and answer questions. It was all common sense safety questions, no big deal. After all that, we get back in the truck and get suited and booted for the unload, which went pretty smooth. It was one of those plants where you're not allowed on top of the tank, so my TE had taken care of what he needed to do up top before we arrived. If not, the people there would have had to go up top, which would have made the process longer. But yeah, the load was a success. The role I played was helping hooking and unhooking the hose, making sure I put caps on with no spills. He showed me how to carry the hose and put it into the hose tray. There was a worker there to watch us do the whole process, and he signed off on everything. He was needed because it was hard to see the product rise in the fill tank, so it was good to have an extra set of eyes there to help, especially for me. My goggles were steady fogging along with my face shield, so it was difficult to see. After that, we turn in our passes, get the paperwork to plug in our tablets, then we get on our way. I drove back to Kuala to drop the trailer and hoses for a wash. I had to back in awkwardly when I got there, and you guys know backing is my kryptonite, so he had to guide me. Did that, uncoupled, post-tripped, and that was basically my first day with my TE. We finished pretty early. I was home by 3 p.m. Sweet as hell, I know. It made me want to strive to be local even more, or at least regional. The next day, we did a different task that was kind of on some relay stuff. We take an empty trailer to load at a location, then drop the trailer at another. We did this both Tuesday and Wednesday. Nothing much to explain there. Everything went well. The loading process is totally different, so I won't be dealing with that in the actual field because it's a different account. Thursday was the longest day where my TE basically had to use all his 14 on his clock. We went to the same location that we went to on Monday and did the same unload. We just went to a different area of the plant to unload the product. The fill tank was a little bit better to see at this one. Only thing with this, my trainer had to back out the plant very carefully with the help from one of the plant workers. From there, we had dropped that trailer off at Kuala and went to go pick up an intermodal trailer at the Gary OC and take it to a rail yard in Chicago. It was cool getting an intermodal load and getting to see what it's like at a rail yard in real time. We had to wait a little while, but it wasn't too bad. It was about 7 or 8 p.m. when the day was over. On Friday, we did another intermodal load that had us going to Harvey, Illinois. It was pretty quick. I went over all the functions of an intermodal trailer with my TE while we got unloaded. Now Saturday was optional for me to come in, which I did. I didn't do any real live work with him. He finished all his tasks earlier that Saturday to where he was able to link with me at the OC and review a couple things just so I had more of an understanding of things. I also completed a survey based on his overall training engineering, which was great. And he even was willing to put more time with me that following Monday to get more coupling and uncoupling and backing in. So no complaints about the TE whatsoever. He was a cool dude, cracked jokes, and he was very willing to answer questions. Like really willing. He'd get offended if I didn't ask enough. He actually had me trying to think of questions to ask after I'd already asked one. I could not have asked for a better TE. He was funny as hell too. It would be times where he would talk like Jeffrey from The Fresh Prince and he'd be on some yes sir, no sir stuff a lot. He also is very willing to help me now that I'm on my own. He's just a phone call away. He'll even call me at times to see how I'm doing. which means I'm going to end with my next video. I will give you guys the story of my first completed load and give you all a 1-month review of the Orange Company. Find out how much I love or hate this company in a month span, and find out how my first load went. Did I run into a stressful situation? Did I tweak? Was I scared? Find out on my next video. And thank you all for tuning in. Wish you all success in your future endeavors.